Chapter 50, Fathers, Fall 2007. Big Mondo was finally off paper. There had been plenty of days when he decided being on parole was harder than being in prison, but he pulled through. He found his peace with God, and he found a job loading produce at the Union Pacific Depot next to Chinatown. Chinatown, like Big Mondo, was changing. Students from a nearby university had adopted the neighborhood and were planting gardens, picking up trash, and bringing services to the homeless. But the train tracks stayed the same. Behind the tortilla factory, the dealers slipped in, sold, and left, repeating the cycle as if called by the same rhythms of nature that ruled the area when the swamp and nights pulsed with songs and frogs. Big Mondo found it hard to believe this was the turf his son and Raymond Sanchez had fought over to the death. The place was desolate, windblown, littered, and yet people found it worth killing for. It wasn't the geography that mattered, it was the ghosts who haunted it. The junkies walked the tracks, as always, and while Big Mondo went about his workday, a few would wander over to say hello and share their struggles. Sometimes he'd fix up a hidden corner behind the warehouse so they could sleep. They combed the tracks at dawn, at noon, and through the night, their wanderings cycling around the fix. Though the singing frogs were gone, the place was not silent. The rails were carriers of gossip, and rumors buzzed along the tracks more reliably than the coast starlet. Bubba is in Tijuana. He's hooked in with the cartels. New stuff is on its way. One day they told Big Mondo it was here. Potent and cheap. Thick and dark as night. You could smoke it, snort it, hot rail it, shoot it. Black tar heroin direct from Tijuas. La Negra had arrived. Little Mondo's heart dropped when he tossed the boy a flattered football. The stranger he called his son ran across the patio and the ball bounced off a chain link fence. Mondo caught it and handed it to the boy. This prison patio was small, the patchy grass draped by the Central Valley sun. Back in the youth authority, they used to have these huge outdoor visiting areas that made you feel as if you were in a nice old park. Mondo and his father once stood in one of those. YA patios, little Mondo holding his newborn baby for a family photo. 3 generations of men. Mondo was 18 then, already a hair taller than his dad, his shoulders and biceps bulkier. The men's near smiles were similar, and so was the way their eyes appeared half shut while talking in the world. The men's near smiles were similar, and so was the way their eyes appeared half shut while taking in the world. But it was their hands that were most alike. Big Mondo's right hand hung at his side in a loose fist, while little Mondo's reached to support his tiny son. Despite the tenderness of the moment, the hands still managed to appear ready for instant action. The 2 men stared into the camera with certainty and pride. Big Mondo's left arm on his son's shoulder, and between them, the boy wrapped in a blanket patterned with pastel bears and moons and stars. The picture was taken when Mondo's life held promise, and this baby was a harbinger of hope. It recorded a moment just before that spring day when Mondo had missed his last chance. That day he should have turned and run like hell from Sophie Rocha's doorstep. The baby was a lean child now, and here in Mondo's prison, the patio was a sad, dry rectangle surrounded by razor wire top fence. But it was better than some of the other facilities where they closed down the patios altogether. Their chatting had been forced and painful all morning. Mondo was so eager to see his dad and son that he got up extra early to give himself a bird bath in the cell's still sink and made sure his prison blues were beautifully pressed with 2 creases on the front of his shirt and 3 on the back. When he walked into the visiting room, the place was crowded with smiles and laughter. He scanned the tables, then he saw them, and he thought his heart might fly from his chest. As they sat together, though, the boy was shy and silent and hid behind Grandpa. Little Mondo tried to coax his son out of his shell with jokes and talk of sports, but too much time had passed, and maybe the boy was thinking scary thoughts about why his father was in this terrible place and why he couldn't come home with them. It stung the worst when his son called Big Mondo his dad. Now the boy stood giggling nervously on the patio, afraid to make the throw but wanting to impress. When Mondo was his son's age, he pitched Little League. He wasn't always the bold athlete he later become. These days, his Giants won every prison yard game, and Mondo was their star pitcher, hitter, and base stealer. But in Little League, his pitches were tentative, cautious. He felt so unbearably sad and sorry whenever his ball hit the batter by mistake. The game simply stopped for him. Everything froze, and the grown-ups yelled to go in. He felt so unbearably sad and sorry whenever his ball hit the batter by mistake. The game simply stopped for him. Everything froze, and the grown-ups yelled to go on and pitch. But he forgot there was a game, and he ran to the batter to make double sure he hadn't hurt the boy. And then a rapture of joy flooded his being, flooded the whole world when he saw the other kid was okay. And this was it, the thing he forgot, the part of himself lost so long ago, the thing that had confused him when he grasped, even felt the sorrow in his eyes of Raymond Sanchez's aging father. His son wound up to throw, and Mondo's own little boy's arm stretched against. His son wound up to throw, and Mondo's own little boy's arm stretched high against the sky, high above the prison fence and past the clouds. His son's hand, released the ball, and it rose like a bird and fell free in a wild, flowing arc when it came back down to earth. Mondo pretended to bobble the catch. This made his little boy smile, and so he did it again. The boy collapsed in laughter on the patch of bristly grass and let Mondo scoop him in his arms. And it was The boy collapsed in laughter on the patch of bristly grass and let Mondo scoop him in his arms. And it was as if the boy's pounding heart was his own heart, and all the squeals and pounding breath were his too. Before the visit ended, his son hugged him and called him Dad, and Mondo wondered, what greater thing would I ever feel than this?